In the bustling city of Ravenshade, where Dr. Adrian Veylan was a name spoken with both admiration and quiet unease. To the public, he was a healer, a charismatic physician who promised hope when hope was scarce. Patients swore that stepping into his clinic felt like stepping into light after years of darkness. Yet behind his perfect smile and immaculate reputation, shadows gathered. The legend of Dr. Veylan began with whispered stories from his patients. They called him the wishing doctor. According to them, if you whispered your deepest desire while he examined you, somehow, impossibly, life would shift in your favor. A debt erased, a promotion gained, a disease that seemed untreatable suddenly vanished. People lined up outside his practice not just for medicine, but for miracles. But miracles often come with a cost. Detective Lena, a seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for lies, first heard of Dr. Veylan while working a fraud case. A patient she had been interviewing offhandedly mentioned the doctor, how he had saved her from bankruptcy after she wished for relief during an appointment. Lena's instincts twitched. Doctors didn't erase debt. Doctors didn't grant wishes. She made a note, setting the name aside, not knowing how soon it would consume her. Meanwhile, across the city, an anxious journalist named Caleb Rourke had begun his own obsession. His sister, diagnosed with an aggressive illness, had been treated by Dr. Veylan. She whispered her wish to him during a checkup, and against all odds, her condition improved. But Caleb wasn't celebrating. Something felt off. The improvement had come at the exact time another patient of Veylan's had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. To Caleb, it looked less like a miracle and more like a transfer. One life exchanged for another. By late autumn, whispers turned into rumors. A few families had begun connecting the dots. Their loved ones had visited the clinic before tragedies struck elsewhere. Yet none dared speak openly. Dr. Veylan was powerful, admired, and untouchable. Detective Hart found her chance when an anonymous tip landed on her desk. A voice, distorted and trembling, said, "He isn't curing them. He's choosing them. Find the files in his office and you'll see." Then the line went dead. That night, Lena sat in her office, the city lights bleeding into the blinds, rereading her notes. There was a pattern, subtle, hidden, patients whose fortunes reversed overnight, always countered by another patient's sudden decline. Too perfect to be coincidence, too strange to be science. He had broken into public records, digging through insurance claims tied to Dr. Veylan's patients. The numbers told a chilling story. Unexplained recoveries matched with sudden fatalities. His sister's case was just one of many. Two strangers, following two separate paths, were inching toward the same dark truth. And in the heart of Ravenshade, Dr. Veylan stood before his mirror, adjusting his tie. His clinic lobby was already filling with hopeful faces. People came to him desperate, ready to believe, ready to whisper their wishes. He smiled faintly, his reflection split by a shard of light, and murmured to himself, Detective Lena never trusted coincidences. For her, patterns were clues wearing masks, and as she pieced together the tip she'd received, she realized that the name Dr. Adrian Veylan had appeared in her case files far more than once. 3 weeks earlier, a businessman under financial ruin had suddenly inherited a fortune after his father's sudden death, just days after his visit to the doctor. A woman with crippling arthritis had been seen dancing at a wedding, while another patient in the same ward collapsed mysteriously. Too many miracles, too many tragedies. The scales of fate tilted strangely, and the fulcrum seemed to be Veylan's clinic. But suspicions were not evidence. Lena needed more. She arranged a quiet meeting with Caleb Rourke at a small coffee shop near the university library. He had reached out after noticing her name mentioned in an article about reopened cold cases. They sat opposite each other, rain tapping gently against the glass, steam rising from untouched mugs. "You're digging into him too?" Caleb asked, lowering his voice. "Dr. Veylan? Yes. I think he's hiding something, but I don't know what yet." Caleb slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of insurance claims, death certificates, and treatment notes he had collected over sleepless nights. "Every time someone recovers miraculously, I've traced 12 cases already. My sister is one of them." Lena studied the pages carefully. His findings echoed her own suspicions, but together, they began to paint a chilling picture. Veylan's miracles seemed less like acts of medicine and more like a redistribution of fortune, as if he was shifting life, wealth, and health from one person to another. Still, theories without proof were worthless. "Why are you doing this?" Lena asked. Caleb's expression tightened. "Because I don't think my sister's healing was free. Someone else paid the price, and if I'm right, he's still doing it." That night, Lena filed a request for surveillance on Veylan's clinic, but it was denied. There wasn't enough to justify it. Frustrated, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She drove past the clinic just after midnight, parking a block away. The building loomed, modern and pristine, its glass front reflecting the faint glow of street lamps. Strangely, a light was still burning inside. Through the glass doors, she spotted Dr. Veylan himself. He was alone in the lobby, standing before a wall of locked cabinets. He opened one, carefully withdrawing a folder before scribbling notes onto a sheet. Then, in an unsettling gesture, he placed the file on a small metal scale that sat on his desk, balancing it against another file. For a moment, he simply stared, as though weighing more than paper. Lena snapped a photo from her phone's zoom, her pulse quickening. Something about the ritual felt deliberate, almost ceremonial. The next morning, headlines struck the city. Councilwoman collapses during public speech. Doctors reported it as a sudden, unexplained heart failure. The same morning, another headline celebrated a young boy's miraculous recovery from a terminal illness. Both names appeared in Veylan's patient list. Caleb stormed into Lena's office, the paper in his hand. "Do you see? It's happening again. One life for another. He's playing God." Lena leaned back in her chair, tension gripping her chest. If that's true, then we're not just dealing with a fraud. We're dealing with someone who thinks he has the right to choose who lives and who dies. And outside the walls of her office, Ravenshade buzzed with stories of hope, never knowing the cost. The waiting list at the clinic was growing longer by the day. The waiting room of Dr. Adrian Veylan's clinic was a theater of desperation. Faces lined the chairs, a mother clutching her child's frail hand, an old man whispering prayers under his breath, a young couple exchanging worried glances. Hope and fear mingled in the sterile air, heavy with the scent of antiseptic and anticipation. Dr. Veylan emerged from his office with practiced grace, his smile radiating calm. His voice carried like velvet. "Hope is never lost here. Tell me your wish, and I'll do everything I can." Patients believed him because he made the impossible happen. And yet, hidden beneath his serene tone was a hunger, a calculation invisible to those who trusted him. Meanwhile, Detective Lena Hart and Caleb Rourke dug deeper. Caleb managed to bribe a clerk at the city records office, obtaining access to sealed documents. Among them were purchase orders for unusual medical equipment Veylan had requested, devices not common in a standard clinic. What disturbed them most were records of a custom-made machine delivered late at night, signed for personally by Veylan. Its purpose wasn't clear, but the paperwork hinted at something far beyond medicine. Lena began visiting families of Veylan's patients. One after another, they recounted eerily similar stories. During checkups, Veylan would lean closer, his voice low and reassuring, asking them to speak their deepest desire. Some thought it a motivational exercise. Others swore he encouraged them to wish. Hours, sometimes days later, their wishes came true. But always, elsewhere, a tragedy unfolded. One woman, tears streaming down her face, whispered to Lena, "I only wanted my husband to recover. But my neighbor's child died the next morning. I can't stop thinking. What if it was connected?" The stories gnawed at Lena's mind. Coincidence was vanishing as an explanation. The pattern was becoming undeniable. One evening, Caleb received an email from an anonymous address. It contained a single sentence. "He keeps the ledger in the lower vault." Attached was a blurred photograph of what appeared to be a locked door beneath the clinic. Caleb shared it with Lena immediately. Together, they planned to infiltrate the clinic after hours. Lena was torn. It meant breaking protocol, risking her badge, but her gut told her the truth was buried there. The night of the break-in, a storm swept through Ravenshade. Rain lashed the streets, lightning split the sky, and the city seemed to hold its breath. They waited until the last patient left, and the clinic lights dimmed. clad in dark clothes. Inside, the building was eerily silent. The polished floors reflected their movements, every footstep echoing louder than it should. They passed examination rooms, the walls lined with certificates and photographs of smiling patients. But in the hallway leading downstairs, the air grew colder, heavier, as though the building itself was warning them away. At the bottom of the stairwell, they found it. A reinforced metal door, marked with a discreet plaque. Records Archive. Caleb pressed his ear against it. No sound. Lena produced a small lockpick set she had carried for emergencies. With trembling hands, she worked at the lock. Finally, the latch clicked. The door creaked open to reveal a dimly lit chamber lined with shelves. But instead of standard patient files, they found something chilling. Black leather-bound ledgers, each labeled with 2 names. On one side, a patient's wish fulfilled. On the other, a patient whose life had ended soon after. The entries were meticulous, precise, stretching back years. Lena flipped through page after page, her stomach turning. It wasn't just medicine. It was a ledger of exchanges. And then, at the far end of the room, they noticed something else. A sealed glass chamber, faintly humming with hidden machinery. Within it, a faint blue glow pulsed like a heartbeat. The faint blue glow inside the glass chamber pulsed with steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of something alive. Lena and Caleb stood frozen at the threshold of the vault, the storm outside rattling against the foundation of the clinic. "What is that?" Caleb whispered. The chamber connected to an intricate device that looked more like an artifact than a piece of medical equipment. A single monitor flickered with symbols Lena didn't recognize. Not numbers, not words, but some strange hybrid of both. On the shelf nearby lay another ledger, thicker than the rest, bound with red thread. Lena opened it carefully. Unlike the others, this one contained not just names, but details, the nature of each wish, the outcome and the cost. She skimmed through until her breath caught. One entry bore her own father's name. Her father had passed years earlier from heart complications. But here, in Dr. Veylan's hand, it was written, "Wish, relief from pain. Outcome, peaceful passing. Transfer, extended years to recipient. Adrian Veylan." Lena's pulse thundered in her ears. He gave himself my father's time," she whispered, horrified. Caleb looked over her shoulder, face pale. "He's been using them, trading lives for his own gain." Before they could process further, the hum of the machine shifted, rising in pitch. Lights flickered. A low alarm sounded, muffled but urgent. Someone knew they were here. They scrambled to put the ledger back, but footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Lena extinguished her flashlight, and the chamber plunged into semi-darkness, the blue glow casting eerie shadows across their faces. They pressed themselves against the shelves, barely breathing. Dr. Adrian Veylan entered calmly, as though expecting them. His presence filled the room with quiet authority, his white coat stark against the gloom. He walked straight to the chamber, pressing his hand against the glass. "I told you to stay hidden," he said softly, not turning around. "But curiosity is a stubborn illness." Caleb's throat tightened. "You knew we'd come." Veylan finally turned, his eyes gleaming with unsettling calm. "Of course. Every wish, every suspicion, every step you take, I've already weighed it." He gestured to the chamber. "This machine is not theft. It is balance. One life wanes, another flourishes. Without me, chaos would rule." Lena stepped forward, fury battling fear. "You're deciding who suffers and who survives. That's not balance, that's control." Veylan tilted his head, studying her. "Control, detective, is simply order that others fear to claim." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room. For a brief moment, Lena saw her own name on the monitor, glowing faintly. Next to it, the words, "Pending." Her breath caught. "What have you done?" Veylan smiled faintly. "Only prepared. The city needs sacrifices, detective, and every ledger must remain balanced." The alarm continued its steady chime as the machine pulsed brighter, casting their faces in blue fire. The storm outside raged louder, as though the city itself sensed what was unfolding beneath its streets. Caleb grabbed Lena's arm, whispering urgently, "We have to leave, now." But Lena couldn't move. Her name glowed brighter on the screen, letters sharpening as though the machine itself had chosen her. And Veylan's voice, calm and unshaken, cut through the storm. "Your wish is already written, Lena Hart. The only question left is, whose life will be the price?" The chamber's glow intensified, painting the vault in cold blue light. Lena's name shimmered on the warning siren. Caleb's grip on her arm tightened, but she tore free, her instincts battling between fear and defiance. Dr. Adrian Veylan stood with quiet composure, as though the storm outside obeyed his presence. He gestured at the ledgers lining the shelves. "Every entry here is a life spared, a wish granted, a miracle made possible. Without me, this city would drown in despair. Without you," Lena countered, her voice firm despite the quake in her chest. "People would have died on their own terms. You're not saving them. You're orchestrating who pays the price." Caleb stepped forward, anger cutting through his fear. "My sister is alive because of you, but who died for her? Whose name did you write down to balance that miracle?" Veylan met his gaze calmly. "Would you rather she had perished? Every wish must demand a sacrifice. Do not pretend you wouldn't make the same choice." The words struck Caleb like a blade. His silence betrayed the truth. If given the chance, he would have chosen his sister's life over another's. Veylan saw it and smiled faintly. "The machine doesn't lie," the doctor continued. "It listens, weighs, and decides. I am only its steward. Without me, this power would be chaos." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Then why is your own name in the ledgers? Why did you give yourself my father's years?" For the first time, Veylan's composure faltered, his smile thinning. "Because every steward must endure the burden of longevity. Without me, no one could manage the balance. I carry this weight so the rest of you don't have to." Lena felt rage boiling in her chest. "No, you carry it because you crave control. You want to play God." The alarm grew louder, echoing through the vault. Veylan moved closer to the chamber, placing his palm against the glass. The monitor responded instantly, Lena's name flashing brighter, her pulse quickening in response as though the machine was tethered to her very life. Caleb yanked a metal stool from the corner and raised it like a weapon. "Shut it down. Now." Veylan turned his gaze on him, serene and unflinching. "Strike if you wish, but understand this. Destroying the chamber means ending every tether. Dozens of patients upstairs, clinging to borrowed life, would perish instantly, including your sister." Caleb froze, the stool trembling in his grip. His face drained of color. "See?" Veylan's tone was gentle, almost paternal. "The balance is unforgiving. You cannot act without consequence." Lena's mind raced. He was right. If the machine was sustaining others, reckless action could unleash catastrophe. Yet doing nothing meant Veylan would continue his reign unchecked. She stepped between Caleb and the machine, her voice low but steady. "Then we find another way, one that doesn't make you judge and executioner." Veylan's eyes softened with something almost like pity. "You are strong, detective, but strength will not change truth. Wishes require sacrifice." Another flash of lightning illuminated the vault. For the briefest second, Lena thought she saw dozens of ghostly silhouettes reflected in the glass chamber, faces of those who had been lost. Their hollow eyes seemed to plead for justice. Caleb lowered the stool slowly, torn between fury and despair. Lena kept her stance firm, though dread coiled in her gut. The machine's glow dimmed slightly, the alarm quieting. But Lena's name remained on the monitor, pulsing like a countdown. Veylan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Before the storm ends, detective, the machine will hold like a living beast, rattling the clinic's foundation as if the city itself resisted what was unfolding beneath its streets." In the vault, the blue glow of the machine bathed everything in unnatural light. Lena's name pulsed on the monitor, the word pending a grim reminder of what hung in the balance. Dr. Adrian Veylan stood like a conductor before an orchestra, his calm presence sharpening the fear that wrapped itself around Lena and Caleb. He extended his hands, almost inviting. "This is not punishment. It is selection. The city chooses through me. The ledger is fair." "Fair?" Lena snapped, fury hardening her voice. "There's nothing fair about trading one life for another without consent." Veylan tilted his head. Consent is irrelevant. The balance requires order, not permission. And if you wish for justice, detective, you must ask yourself whose life will be weighed against it. Caleb's chest heaved, his thoughts spiraling. He pictured his sister, alive, smiling again, believing her suffering was over. If the machine fell, would she crumble too? Veylan's words gnawed at him, whispering temptation. Protect her, even at another's cost. Lena caught his expression, reading the conflict in his eyes. Don't you dare, she said sharply. That's exactly how he wins, by making us complicit. But Veylan's gaze stayed fixed on Caleb. You've already benefited, haven't you? Your sister lives. Do not feign innocence. The balance touched you long before tonight. The air thickened with silence, broken only by the faint hum of the machine. Lena's instincts screamed. If they waited any longer, the decision would be taken from them. She scanned the vault quickly. The ledgers, the humming chamber, the monitor tethered to lives upstairs. There had to be a weakness. Her eyes landed on the power conduit, thick cables snaking from the machine into the wall. If she cut them, perhaps she could sever the system without triggering a collapse. But Veylan noticed her glance. Careful, detective, he warned softly. Pull the wrong thread and you unravel every life tied here. Your father taught you to value truth, did he not? He gave me his years so you could still chase it. The words struck deep, but Lena forced herself forward. My father didn't give you anything. You took it. Caleb suddenly moved faster than thought. He lunged toward the chamber, stool raised again. Lena shouted, "Stop!" But it was too late. The stool crashed into the conduit, sparks exploding as the machine shrieked. The vault trembled, its glow surging wildly. On the monitor, names flickered, dozens, hundreds, flashing like a dying heartbeat. Upstairs, faint cries erupted as patients convulsed in their beds. Lena's heart seized. Was Caleb dooming them all? Veylan roared for the first time, composure shattered. You fool! The balance will tear itself apart! The machine's glow reached blinding intensity. Lena acted on instinct, tackling Caleb away from the conduit. She seized the red-threaded ledger and hurled it into the flames of sparking wires. The book ignited instantly, its pages curling into ash. The monitor screamed static. Names dissolved. The chamber's glass cracked, then burst, shards raining across the vault. A final surge of blue light swallowed the room, and then silence. When Lena's vision cleared, the machine was gone. Only shattered metal and smoldering pages remained. Caleb coughed, blood trickling from his lip, eyes wide with shock. But Dr. Veylan was nowhere. The vault was empty, save for the ruin. Lena staggered to her feet, trembling. Had he escaped, or had the destruction consumed him with his machine? She couldn't be sure. Above them, sirens wailed as emergency crews rushed to the clinic. Some patients had collapsed, others clung to fragile breath. The cost of their choice was unclear, but one truth was undeniable. The ledger was destroyed. Standing in the rain